Okay, well, long time no video. Today is October 4th. Don't remember the last time I posted a video. I made a few, just didn't like the way they turned out. They were boring or whatever. One of them resulted in me being stuck up at Urbana for 5 or 6 hours waiting for weather to get back. Came back at 1,005, I think, which is okay, but not my favorite thing. And then I decided, well, what happened is the landing gear service bulletin parts arrived sometime in, I think, May or June. And we installed it on my friend's airplane, and it was such a terrible job. I didn't want to do it on my own airplane, at least until it cooled off. I think we did it. It was hot. I don't know if it was June, July. It was hot. So I figured mid-September would be a good time to do that. The weather gets a little cooler, air gets a little drier, etc., etc. And I figured since my annual was due in October, I would just do all of that. I would go ahead and put the landing gear on, the nose gear, the nose fork, and do the annual. Then I decided it would also be a good time to add landing lights, or the lighting kit, the Nav Lights, the strobes, and the landing light. Be a good time to do that. But to do that, I would have to update the old-style brass tab screw electrical wing connections with the nice little sockets. And I actually found, rooting through my hangar, which is, it's like a really poorly run pawn shop or dollar store. There's just stuff laying everywhere. I found an open bag of the parts, the blue connectors that go into wing roots. I thought, well, hell, I've already got that. Let's go ahead and do that. I've got all the parts. So, did the first wing. You install a little doubler. Went to get the second doubler for the other wing. Wasn't there. And I thought this would be a good time to inventory the rest of the kit. Also missing were the 26 electrical pins, the little pins that go on the end of the wires that go into the connectors. Had none of those. So I ran off to Vans.com and I ordered the, I think the doubler was maybe I think it was $1. And I was also missing 2 of the little hexagonal standoffs that the doubler mounts onto. I didn't have those either. Those were, I think, 25 cents each. It was $1.50 in parts. And then I ordered the pins, the 26 pins, and they came up at $1.85. And I thought, well, that's got to be like a strip of 10 or a strip of 6. And it's not. Those pins actually cost $1.85 each, and I needed 26 of them. So I kind of waited a day or two. I looked around to see if I could find them cheaper, and I think the cheapest I could find them, and they're not common pins. They're not Molex. I thought they were Molex. They're not. They're some ARM technologies or something. The best I could find was $1.25 and a ton of shipping and blah blah blah. I thought, well, I might as well give Vans. I'll give Vans the money. If I've got to pay somebody, I might as well pay Vans. Backup battery low. Backup battery test needed. Yeah, that's going to happen later because I haven't run the engine for a long time. So ordered those. They came snail mail. I think Vans was kind of backed up. It's just after they had opened, after the whole COVID closures. So I think it took them 3 or 4 days to fill the order and another 4 to get here. But I moved on with other stuff. So went ahead and put on the nose gear. And I did it, the first one I helped with, there's 3 long drill bits that you go through this tunnel and drill through the firewall into the landing gear, which in a way kind of irritates me because the holes in the firewall were machined on machine by computer. They're very, very precisely located. I don't see why they couldn't have done that with the big steel plate on the back of the landing gear, but that's probably due to the vagaries of building it. It probably wouldn't line up, but it sure would have been nice. So you start with a long 1/8 inch bit down through this tunnel, and you're cutting into steel. So my theory, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me when you're drilling into steel, you want low RPM and high pressure. First of all, it's kind of hard to maintain a low RPM on an air drill. You got to really modulate the air. And the other thing is very hard to put a lot of pressure on an 18-inch long 1/8 inch bit because it just wants to bend. So, and then you're holding a little bushing down there. There's a little bushing. It's supposed to be a drill guide, so you're putting the hole in the right place. But the only thing holding it is the width of the metal of the firewall, which is probably 0.63, if that. So it keeps slipping out of there. So you've got one hand way down in the tunnel, and it's not easy to get in there. And you're pushing with the drill, and that was a nightmare. And a bit that small, 1/8 inch, cutting into steel, doesn't pull shavings. It makes dust. So it took 2 or 3 hours to get those holes drilled. And then you go to, I guess it's a 1/4 inch bit, and do the same thing again. And that was kind of sort of okay. Then you go to a 3/8 inch bit, and that took us I think the first hole maybe took, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, and the second hole we never finished. We finally gave up on the second hole, took off the 5 temporary bolts that were holding the nose gear on, took it to the bench, and drilled through that hole on the bench, and it was so much easier. So that gets the holes drilled. Now you got to get the engine mount bolts back through there and through the isolators into the engine mount, and you've hoisted the engine up. You had to hoist the engine up to pull the isolators out. Then you set it down on a piece of wood while you did the drilling. Then you put the isolators back in, and if you don't get exactly that right angle on the engine, those bolts just don't want to go in. So it's a big struggle to get the bolts back in, but it was finally done. And that's when I said, I'm not doing mine, go home, we'll do it in September. So come September, I thought, I'm really not going to do any of that. I went ahead and hung the thing, hoisted the engine, got the isolators out, put it up against the piece of wood, took the 1/8 inch bit and drilled it just enough to put a dimple in the plate, took it off of the airplane, and went and finished up the drilling on my bench, on my workbench. And again, finishing up the 1/8 inch took a while because, again, you're just making dust. I didn't even go with the 1/4 inch. I went with something slightly bigger than a 1/8 because I had a 3/4 inch titanium bit that I bought at Lowe's for $28 that has a little pilot tip on it, and that pilot tip fit right into the hole that I had already killed. And we were through those, I mean, it was 10 minutes each, so that was all great. Did have trouble getting the bolts through again. I expected that, so it took a while. It ended up being a 2-day job again, a lot of frustration. It's not an easy job. But I thought, well, that's going to be the hardest part of the thing. I mean, everything else should be easy, and boy, was I ever wrong. So I went ahead and did the annual while I was waiting for parts and such to start on the wings, or the lights and the connector. Annual went pretty well. I had been hearing kind of a clunky sound from my cooling fan up under the panel here, back behind the panel. So, of course, I have all that stuff off for the annual. And I turned on the master, and that fan was perfectly quiet. So I went to look at the one over here, and it wasn't moving at all. And that was a ground wire, thin little ground wire. I think it's 3 human hairs twisted together. It had broken off, so the fan wasn't working. So that was just a matter of crimping on a new terminal, and now the fan works, so that was great. The only other thing I found, when I removed the inspection plates down underneath the wing, there's 6 of them, on the far left and on the far right, it's where the brake lines from the landing gear meet up with the brake lines that come up to the brake cylinders. And one of those panels on the left had evidence of brake fluid on it. Not a puddle per se, but more than just a couple drips. So cleaned that up and got the tiny little wrench up in there. It's very hard to get a wrench on those fittings, and I think I got maybe a 64th of a turn more on them, so we'll see next year. That's fixed that. So the annual wasn't too bad as well. I mean, not really. Then the normal stuff that you do on your annual, just to clean up and things of that nature. So then it was time to do the lights. And so I had the parts, so I was able to get the connector plates in both of the wings. Now when I built the airplane, when I built the wings, it was on the left, I did the left wing first, and they have you pull a piece of fishing line through some bushings all the way out to the wingtip on the off chance that you may someday want to install lights. So that was there. Apparently the right wing, and I remember this now, it didn't at the time, the right wing I built on New Year's Eve. And I was skinning the wing, I was getting ready to skin the wing, and we ended up having kind of an impromptu New Year's Eve party, a couple hangers down. And I just had all I got to do is put these top skins on, take me half an hour or so, put those skins on there, and apparently completely forgot about dragging that fishing line down through those bushings to that side of the wing. So now I have no wires out to the end of the wing where the nav light and the landing light go. So that's not very helpful at all. And I lost a lot of sleep over that. I spent 3 or 4 nights just, what in the hell am I going to do about that? What am I going to do about that? Came up with all kinds of ideas. Finally just went to Lowe's. I had 2 ideas. One was to find what they call a fishing kind of rod or something like that, just something that you can push down through there. And really couldn't find anything like that that would fit because the bushings are very small. What I did find was some hose. It's kind of a stiff hose. I got a coil of it, 100 feet of this hose. It's for drainage, like if you have a water feature or something, you want to bury this under the ground and use it for drainage. But it would make a real nice conduit for those wires. I got 100 feet of it because that's how it came in, a big coil of 100 feet. It was like $17, so it wasn't even expensive. But the problem is, when I rolled out the 12 feet that I needed, it was so stiff, it would just spring back into that coil shape. So I bought 15 feet. I wish I could have just bought 2 6-footers, but they come as 5 feet. I probably could have got away with that. But anyway, I bought 3 5-foot lengths of PVC pipe and stretched them all out and forced that hose with tie wraps every foot or so to straighten it out. Well, the first thing it did was just bend the PVC pipe. It was so strong, stronger than the PVC. So So on impulse, I got out my heat gun and kind of ran it along that black hose, and sure enough, it would just loosen up and let that PVC pipe pull it back straight. So then it was really just a matter of getting a string through it so I could pull wires through it, and I did that by just taking some twine or white string and tied a little piece of aluminum to it and put it an inch into the hose and went to the other hand with my shop vac and sucked it right through. It took like a second. It was out there. So then I was able to pull the 5 wires through. And then I put that conduit, there's lightning holes right next to where those little grommet holes are. I stuffed it up through there and put some, it's clamped down so it doesn't float around. It's still in there. I didn't want the wires just sitting on the ribs. That can't possibly be good for them. But I didn't want that pipe floating around in either. So it's all clamped down so it won't move. So I got the wires out there. And then came what I thought would be the hardest part, is cutting the holes in the wings. You need a hole in the wing for the landing light, and you need holes in the wingtips for the nav lights. And I didn't want to do that. It's like operating on your own baby. So I got another guy, built an RV-12. He's cut 2 of those holes because he has an IS and he can have 2 lights. So he came over and cut the holes for me. And I got somebody else to cut the hole in the wingtips. I just couldn't cut it into my own airplane. I was afraid I'd botch it. And if it was botched up, I'd rather be able to blame it on somebody else. So I got the holes cut, and then I fashioned the lens, big plastic lens, $20 piece of plastic, and it doubles as the lighting kit for the RV-10, so it's massive. There's no way it's going to fit in that tiny little hole. But I went ahead and trimmed it down. There's a metal plate that goes on at each side because that's what the screws are going to go into. So I got it trimmed down to that size, and it still didn't want to fit. And I decided I'm not going to test fit it because if I ever managed to get it in there, I probably wouldn't be able to get it back out again. And I was afraid it would break. It's a $20 part, but then you got the shipping and then the 5 days, it adds up. So I just set that aside and moved on to the next thing. That was, it was just one of those jobs where, okay, I got the hard part done and it's downhill from here, but no, it wasn't. It was very much like climbing Mount Everest blindfolded. It's like, oh, finally, we're there. No. We got another climb tomorrow. Oh, well, we're got to be close. No. It's an even harder climb. So everything was just a royal pain. And the crux of the problem was this. When I was building this fuselage, RV-12s were using the Dynan D180, the older, not quite as nice as Skyview avionics. About midway through the Skyview, Van started including the Skyview or offering the Skyview, but it's different wiring. So, and this, I applaud Vans for this. I really applaud them. I don't remember if I paid for this or not, or if they just gave it to me, but I applaud them for doing this. They created a conversion harness so that we wouldn't have to tear out all the wiring we had spent weeks putting in. We could just put this conversion harness in there and it would drive the Skyview. So I got it in my head, I've got a Skyview. So there's a couple things that happened with this. I was adding the connectors and I was adding the lighting kit at the same time. The directions for the lighting kit assumed that you already had the connectors. And the instructions for the connectors sort of kind of assumed that you had the lighting kit, or there would be like, if you have a lighting kit, it's kind of muddled to read. So that made it a little confusing. So there was a lot of overlap. One was telling me to do it, but they would tell me in different ways to do the same thing. And then there were things neither of them addressed at all. So what finally frustrated me, I was doing the math in my head. So there is a nav light, power light, a nav power wire that goes down to the left wing. It's yellow and red. And it wasn't labeled, but I did see, and then one of the instructions said that's your nav power light. Well, I got nav lights on each side. How does it get to the other side? There's clearly going to have to be a wire going through the fuselage. And then we had lights on the other side, yellow and blue yellow. We didn't know what those did at all. So we got a voltmeter out, and we confirmed that 12 volts, if I turn on nav, I got 12 volts on that wire. If I turn on nav strobe, I have 12 volts on that wire. So that's nav power. That left the burning question of where strobe power wire. There was no strobe power wire. Then I had the white and the yellow-blue. Those are the difference between steady landing light and landing light pulse. So that was easy. We found those just using the multimeter. But I was really stewed about what to do about the strobe power wire. So I'm looking at the instructions, and I'm following the Skyview instructions because in my mind, I have a Skyview. I got on Van's forum, and guy said, well, you're missing your yellow-white wire. It's probably in pin 1 of this connector. You probably put it in the wrong pin 1. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. I could see myself doing that. But I came and looked for a yellow-white wire. I came and looked for that connector. Well, I don't have that connector. The connector he was referring to hooks up the headset jacks, and my headset jacks are direct wired. So I don't know what I'm doing about this yellow-white wire, and I'm losing sleep over it, thinking, well, I'll just add I don't know what I'll do. So I got to thinking, well, I really don't care for the distinction between nav, strobe, and nav. I don't care if they're both on. I'll just add another wire. But he had posted, as I looked closer at the little screenshot of the page, I saw the word fabricate and pull through the fuselage. I said, well, there's my guy. I need to fabricate a wire and pull it through the fuselage. Now, why didn't I see that before? I didn't see that because it was under the D180 instructions, and I thought I had a Skyview. So that was an epiphany. That changed everything. I no longer was laying awake trying to figure out the wiring. Then came, I think the other big thing I had trouble with was the plastic tips that go on the wing tips to hold the strobe lights. They're kind of brittle, and it's kind of a weird idea. Vans has you fill them up with epoxy and flocks and stuff them on there and Cleco them, and I guess it's to fill, kind of fit to the wing. And I did that all wrong. I used the wrong glue, apparently. I use glue that actually acts like epoxy and holds on to things. So I had trouble getting them off of there. So they have a couple little chips in the plastic. I'm just going to fill those with Bondo because it's going to have to go to the paint shop anyway. And what turned out to be, I finally got to the last step. The very last step is put that lens in front of the landing light, the thing I'd been putting off for literally 3 weeks. This all took 3 weeks. I finally put that thing on there, and it wasn't that hard at all. so again, you're climbing Mount Everest, you've fought every level of the way. Well, tomorrow we're going to hit the peak. Well, that's got to be that's got to be the hardest part of the whole thing is getting to the peak, and it turned out to be anticlimactic. So here we are today. Why we're sitting here is I'm letting the engine run because I have done the annual. And, everything's been torn apart and everything. I want to let the engine run for a while. It's nice and smooth. I balanced the carbs, got them to 0.000. It's nice and smooth. It's been running for, I don't know, as long as I've been yapping. Mouth's running as long as the engine's running. I am going to taxi around the hangar a couple times to get a feel, because I have torqued the main nut that holds on the nose wheel fork. I've torqued it to Van's 20 foot-pounds at this point kind of thing. It may be different than what I was used to because I had kind of fine-tuned mine. Oh, this is something that really cracked me up with Vans. It just really, sometimes they make me laugh. So I go to put the new nose fork on, and it came with, so if you've never seen one, it saddles the nose wheel, and it has, so you can use a tow bar. It has 2 bolts with like 6 washers on each side for the tow bar to grab onto. They sent brand new bolts, brand new washers, when I could just as easily take the old ones off of the old fork and put them on the new fork. Well, that's like, man, this is very inclusive. This is a very, very complete kit. So then and they sent me 2. There's one big nut that goes underneath the nose fork, and it's onto the gear leg, and it holds the fork in place. It's at the bottom, and it pivots around that. It's a big, big brass-looking nut, encapsulated nut for cotter pin. They sent 2 of those. All right, I only need 1. Maybe, I don't know why they sent 2 of those, but they sent 2 of them. Perhaps they sent 2 because you actually use it to drill a hole into the steel gear leg. You have to drill a hole for a cotter pin to hold that nut on there. Maybe they're afraid you're going to tear that thing up as you're drilling the cotter pin hole. I don't know. Very complete kit. I finally get drilled through the steel. I was so tired of drilling through steel by that point, but I had to drill through that cotter pin. I go to the kit contents to get the cotter pin, and there wasn't one. They didn't send a cotter pin. Now, I keep them on bench stock. I always have cotter pins, but I just thought that was the funniest thing in a kind of angry way. So, strange. So anyway, today I'm just going to fly this thing and make sure it flies. Really nothing has changed that would affect anything, but after the annual I'm always a little bit paranoid because things have been taken apart and put back together again. On annuals where I really don't find anything wrong, I think it was more risk than gain. I have more risk of breaking something, but you do have to look. I mean, we do it for a reason, but I always worry after the annual that a hose is going to pop off or something goofy like that. I do have the nav lights on. If I turn on the landing light, okay, yesterday I was getting a little bit of there it is. I get a little bit of noise from the landing light. Not much. And I'm just going to, so about the nav strobe. Okay, so the fact is I never had a yellow-white wire. There's a noise filter, it's just a capacitor, but it's got a bunch of wires coming out of it, and that was the thing I was looking at when it said fabricate, and that's what got me to D180 instructions. And it's a noise filter, I suppose, because it's a capacitor, but it's also a power distribution center, basically. It doubles up the 2 wires. There's 2 wires coming out of it with 12 volts on them, one for strobe, one for nav. Or I'm sorry, yeah, I think that's, well, maybe one for lights. And then there's pulse power, or pulse sync. The strobes can communicate with each other with a wing, through the fuselage wing, so they strobe at the same time. And I did have to add 1 more wire through the fuselage, so there's 2 now. what I found on that power distribution center is what it does is it takes one of the 12 volts and it springs off to 2 pins, and one goes to the nav lights and one goes to the strobe lights. So there is no distinction on an RV12 this old. There probably is on the IS. There is no distinction between nav strobe and nav, which is why the nav power light was always hot. That that confused me no end. Nowhere in the plans does it say that. And why? I mean, this thing is as old as the airplane. This was the original switch panel. So they had nav strobe even though the lighting kit didn't make a distinction. My thinking was they forgot to put the wire in. Oh man, we forgot to do that strobe power wire. Well, that's okay. They'll figure it out. So that's that little mystery solved. Oh, the other thing that, I'm going to go around one more time. I now carry a backup radio. I bought a little Yaesu, I forget the model number, it's the lowest model airband. I bought it with the alkaline batteries instead of the lithium because I don't trust long-term storage of rechargeable batteries. You go to use the thing and it's dead. And I bought a spare battery pack because it's actually kind of hard to change the batteries. They kind of snap in real tight. And I carry that here back in the channel in case this thing quits on me again, because it's kind of funny. Every few years or so, it'll just get real staticky, and within 10 minutes you can barely use it. It happened twice in 2 weeks, so I bought the backup radio because I can't figure out what's wrong with that radio. And so I was going to go flying. First day I had it in here, I was out at the end of the runway. I was just going to go do some flying. And the radio went bad. Tower couldn't hear me. And so I said, well, I got to taxi back to my hangar. And I could barely hear him clearing me back. But about halfway, I thought, well, let me get out the backup radio. I got this backup radio. Let's see if it works. So I pulled that out. And I had bought an extra, the optional PTT. There's another cord so you have a push-to-talk that you can mount over here or put it on your thumb. So I get back to the end of the runway. I'm using that radio, and you can't hear that one either. It's real choppy. And I said, okay, taxi back to the hangar. I turn around. I'm about halfway back. I thought, I'm going to take that PTT wire out of there and see what happens. Push-to-talk, that's what PTT means. And I keyed the mic on the radio, like a walkie-talkie. And he said, well, that sounds great. So I said, all right, I'd like to go out, take off, taxi back to the runway. And he said, can you do you need to taxi down the runway? I said, no, this is an RV12. I can turn on a dime. So I got out there and I used that radio. And what I did at the end of the runway, because it's a 5-watt radio, this is an 8-watt radio, and it's got an antenna. It's got a little rubber antenna up here, so it's kind of blocked by the airframe and all that. So I told him what was going on. I was the only one flying. He wasn't busy. He was extremely helpful. I mean, I'm just really impressed with the tower guys here. I told him I'm going to fly out towards Lily Chapel. I'm going to call you every 2 miles, 2 miles, 4 miles, 6 miles. If it starts sounding weak, let me know, and I'm going to come back in because I don't want to get stuck outside the Class Echo, which I really can't because we actually have a notch there, but, anyway. So at 2 miles it was fine. At 4 miles it was getting weaker. 5 or 6 miles he said, it's dim, but I can hear you. And I said, that's all I'm coming back because that's all I ever needed to do. I'm not going to be flying IFR with it. I'm not going to be talking to a 30-mile away approach center. I'm going to be trying to get back into Bolton. That's all I'm ever going to use it for. So it works just fine. It's sitting back there if I ever need it again. So that's the updates. I think, yeah, this is feeling pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and fly it. Give these guys a call. I haven't talked to the tower for a month. This might not go well. Oh, there's that his. Oh. Bolton Tower, experimental 284 Delta Golf at the T hangars, ready to taxi, departing VFR westbound.
Experimental 284 Delta Golf, Bolton ground, runway 22, taxi via Bravo and Alpha, wind calm altimeter 3013.
013. Bravo to Alpha to 224 Delta Golf. 3013. Oh, we're pretty close to that. I will say, when I was working in the hangar, we were up to like 304 something. I mean, it was the nicest weather. 3047, that's pretty high pressure. But I am still getting kind of a side tone when I transmit. And I don't know. I checked all the headset grounds. The headset ground on the right side I think wasn't doing anything, but it should now. I have definitely grounded this one. It's grounded to the lights, but that should all be the same ground because they ground to the airplane. So I don't know what's going on with this radio. I can't afford a new one. Okay. I feel like I'm getting heat. I don't want any heat. Engine's so smooth. This is really nice. Can't quite get my squelch where I want it. There we go. That better? Yeah. Alright, Bravo to Alpha to 22. He was thinking about sending me down to 4. Wind's calm. Oh yeah, I'm not. In fact, the turning's just fine. Feels perfect. Alrighty. Now I have heard that even with this new wheel, you'll still get a little bit of front back shimmy on takeoff if you get it going too fast. But again, I mean, what they say, I came across this term while I was researching this, or term, it's more of a thesis. The nose gear on Van's airplane is not for landing, it's for taxiing. Just keep it off the ground, get it off the ground, keep it off the ground as long as you can, which I've been trying to do. And I have found on takeoff, I don't really get much of that wobble if I get the nose up. On touch and goes is when I'll get that because I don't get the nose up. So we'll see. It's not that bothersome, but you know, it's a thing. Still discharging. So the battery's going to be low. I need to really run the engine. The battery's going to be low from turning it on and testing things, turn it off without actually having run the engine. All right, there's my canopy check. And we're going to do a nice heavy run up here. We're going to run this up for a while. And controls, we want to check the controls because the airplane has been taken apart. I mean, we do it anyway, but I'll do it with a purpose this time. Got brand new plugs. Air sounding good. Boy, really charging the battery. So that battery's down a bit. Charging 7 amps, that's above normal. So we'll run it for as long as I can stand flying today. And we're going to leave this running for a while. Seems pretty solid. Yep. Alright, everything's good. I didn't really do much on the engine but balance the carbs, but still, I did touch the carburetor, so I get a little huffy about it. My low line.
Foxtrot, NRA right downwind, runway 22, report midfield. Wind is 170 at 04, altimeter 3012.
12, report to right midfield downwind for 22, 4 Quebec Fox.
Hey, Bolt Tower 4 Delta Golf, ready for takeoff at Alpha 1, runway 4, departing westbound.
Terminal 4 Delta Golf for runway 22, clear for takeoff, right turn westbound approved, watch for excess traffic inbound from the Lily Chapel area.
Clear for takeoff 22, right turn out, watch for the traffic, 4 Delta Golf.
Just 4 Quebec Foxtrot, watch for experimental, departing runway 22, they'll be westbound.
Looking for Delta Golf, 4 Quebec Fox.
I know that guy. All right, here we go. First time in a long time. That last minute, did I lock the oil door? Well, there's a 100-foot takeoff. Let's get some altitude just in case. And I'm going to turn on my pulse light so he can see me. Even if I never fly at night, it's worth having lights just during the daytime. They make you so much easier to see. He's going to be looking for me. I'm going to be looking for him. He's right there. So I'm actually going to stand, I think I can extend south a little bit because he's going to be going that way when he hits the pattern. So I'll just go out here towards the end of the runway until I'll be off to his south, off to his right, because I don't see him yet either. He'll also be descending to pattern altitude. We'll just climb way above that.
Traffic.
He's 4 miles away, and he's 200 feet above me. All right, better make my turn before the tower signal. Thought you were going to turn. Oh, he fell off the scope. Now we really got to watch for him. Now he won't be heading due east either. He'll be heading more of a northeast. And we'll do a due west. Everything's in the green. There's my traffic, 500 feet below. And close. But 500 feet below, so I'll move over this way a little bit.
4 Delta Golf, I have Quebec Fox in sight.
And he's passed.
4 Delta Golf, that's the only traffic I have for you out to the west. Frequency change approved. See you later.
Frequency approved, 4 Delta Golf, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Well, I'm just going to stooge around for a little bit.
Full Quebec Fox, right midfield.
Give you guys a break.
4 Quebec Foxtrot, runway 22, clear to land.
Clear to land, 4 Quebec Fox.
I'm on the way to Ugly Gun Farmers to do some touch and goes because I haven't flown for a while. I did not mention part of the reason it took 2 weeks to do these wing lights, or 3 weeks, or whatever it was. I couldn't really spend. I think maybe there were on occasion, maybe 2 or 3 days that I spent more than 2 or 3 hours out at the hangar because we're doing a lot of grandparenting. We've got the twins. While my daughter and son-in-law work, we have them during the day. I don't call them the twins anymore. I call them the boys, boys, boys. And it's, she can handle them alone, but when it's feeding time and they're both screeching at the same time, and I actually did spend 45 minutes alone with them. She went out to Walmart. She thought I'd be fine. At 3 minutes after she's gone, they're both squawking. So I ended up, I put them in their car seats and put them on the table in front of our couch, and I had 2 bottles going at once. But the problem with that is I can only burp one at a time. I pick one of them up, and I'm holding him over the shoulder, and he settles down, and the other one's screaming. I mean, I'm swapping back and forth. I was thinking, I hope she gets home soon. So I tried to spend some time at home with her, with the boys, whenever I could. And I did spend enough time with them that I can now pick which one is which. I've gotten my average time of being correct, or my average percent of being correct, of picking which one is which, all the way up to 50%. So, believe it or not, that's progress. I was 80% wrong. But bonding time with the boys is not a bad thing. They're not very interesting to talk to. They're not very interesting to play with, but they're great for taking naps. You put that hot little body up against you, snuggles right up against your neck, and I don't care if you just got out of bed after 12 hours of sleeping, you're asleep again. Their middle names ought to be Ambien. But so that, I'm not griping, I'm just pointing out, that took a lot of the time out of the day. So what I would try to do is get out in the hangar in the morning when my brain was fresh, head back about lunchtime when they were going to want to be fed, they were getting squawky, and sit with the kids. So, and we're still doing that. It's a Sunday, so I've got the day off, and wife has the day off. But that killed some of the time in a good way. So here we are, just about to London. I'm doing the autopilot just to get familiar with that again. I want to go down to about 2,000 feet. Actually, I think it's 2,300 feet here. I'll look it up. Let's take it down to 2,500. Let's say 2,300 and down. And let's see, map, info, pattern altitude 21. Yeah, okay, I was right first time. So let's take that down to 21. We need to pull back throttle a little bit. I noticed on a newest version of ForeFlight, you can actually plan VFR pattern entries on your ForeFlight, so you don't even have to do that yourself anymore. I decided not to fiddle with it today. Too much going on already. And I'm going to circle back. The wind is out of the south, so I'm just going to circle back a left traffic to 27, but I want to fly a full pattern. So we'll get out here over the prisons or past the prisons and make our turn in. We still got to get down to 2100. We're not doing it very quickly. Let's go a little faster. Vertical speed. Why won't you let me do that? Lower, lower, lower. There we go. Now there's that rough area right at 3,800. Nothing up there. It's gone. See, it's at resonance. Right at 3,800.
Please off Lima, turning base to 111, 60 west.
Now let's see. We're at 1,500 foot per minute descent, and we should intercept at 2,100. Let's see how it does. Let's get some rudder in there too. Man, am I sloppy. Need some left rudder here. All right, I'm thinking about 2,200. It should start leveling out. Okay, it's telling me it's getting ready to do it. There's 2,280. Yep, here we go. Leveling her out. Just keep the gas. There's 3,800 roughness there. Get past that. Get into 4,000. It's nice and smooth again. All right, now let's take our track and turn us towards the runway. Keep airspeed up. Keep an eye on the airspeed.
Madison County traffic, XML 284 Delta Golf, going after a midfield left downwind, runway 27, touch and go, Madison County.
Alrighty, I didn't have that feedback. Maybe that only happens on the ground. And this should take us, let's zoom in so we can see the runway. And track right, there we go. Track to midfield is right there. Hold the speed, because that's flap speed.
2235 Echo, left downwind, runway 8, Randolph, touch and go.
Autopilot off. Oh, hey, I actually had to trim. I shouldn't have had to do that, in my opinion. Should have already been trimmed. And I'm going to fly a wide pattern because it's been a while.
Madison County traffic, 4 Delta Golf, midfield left downwind, 27, touch and go, Madison County.
All right, we're 2 knots above flap speed. That's perfect. We're still at 20. I'm holding pattern altitude. That's perfect. Go ahead and get that extra couple knots off of there. I must have turned on obstructions or something when I was fiddling around there. I got all the yellow obstructions now. These are all light poles. I'm not flying a freaking helicopter. Wish I was, but... All right, and we got to go to takeoff trim. There we go. Still charging 4 amps. The battery's still thirsty. Drinking like it's lemonade in July. Very smooth today, a lot of visibility. All right, they're going to extend my base because, again, it's been a while since I've flown and it takes a long time to get this thing to go down. That's about as far as I really want to go.
Madison County traffic, 4 Delta Golf, left base, 27, touch and go, Madison County.
Right off County.
I'm all the way to idle, and I bet we're still going to be high. Traffic check. Clear. Check both runways because the wind is calm. Clear.
4 Delta Golf, final, 27, Madison County, touch and go.
And overshot final. This is your classic stall spin. 4 whites on the Vassie. That doesn't sound right. There we go. I think we'll be okay. I think we're actually going to be high, but let's see if it's starting to come down a little bit better. I think we'll be okay. May not even have to touch throttle at all. Best glide is, what, 50, 63? No, 59. Best glide is 59, but we don't really need it, I don't think. 63 is minimum descent. That may be what I want. I don't know. Somewhere between 59 and 63 is going to get us to the runway. Oh, it's going to be close. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. Hate it. That nose up. Keep the nose up. Keep the nose up. Go. Flaps down. Trim is good. Off we go. That wasn't bad. Oh, there's what's in the judge's old hangar. What do we got in there? Looks like in our coupe. Oh, that's wobbling. Look at that wobble. Oh, man. All right, that I think is down to balancing the nose wheel again. I got to get better wheel weights than the ones I bought from Harbor Freight. Home of flinging wheel weight. That's terrible. I got to get that nose wheel balanced. Yeah, see, it was on a touch and go though. See, it's when I got that wheel really spinning is when it does that. So getting that nose up on a touch and go, I might be better served doing stop and goes. As I think on it, I don't have to do a touch and go. I got lots of runway. Let's try that. This one's gonna be a stop and go.
That's not 733 Golf Lima, turning base 111, 69 west.
Got a new grip on the flap handle. The old rubber grip was worn out after 7 years. Got a new one. It was upgrades everywhere. Nothing was off the table. All right, we don't need any more speed. Forward back. Don't need to go fast.
Madison County traffic, 284 Delta Golf, midfield left downwind, 27, touch and go, Madison County.
Got a bit of a wind from the right. I'm correcting for it. Got quite a bit of correction in. It looks to be 18 knots from the right. Funny I didn't feel that down on the runway. Maybe I just didn't notice it because I'm so good. I just intuitively correct for it. That actually could be true. All right, let's get those flaps down. Go. Let's get our trim set to take off.
There we go. County traffic, Cessna 2235, Echo, left, downwind runway 8, land off.
Back Actually, I'm getting a little far out. Overcorrecting. There we go. I'd like to go just outside the Farm Science Review here, around this copse of trees. Is that a copse? I don't know. Look that up when I get home.
Leaving altitude.
All right, I can barely hear their Skyview chick, which I guess isn't a bad thing.
Madison County traffic, 4 Delta Golf, left base 27, touch and go, Madison County.
Still nobody out here. Nobody here but us chickens. And nobody. Yeah. Boy, it's clear air. Wonderful day. Now, that's why I overshot final. I wasn't paying attention to the crosswind. That's what happened. My story, and I'm sticking with it. Now, this one I'm going to do a stop and go. And see if we can protect that nose wheel a bit more. Yes, I am kind of crabbing a little bit. Well, it looks, the sock, I mean, it shifts direction as it gets close to the ground. Looks like the sock is right down the runway. All right, so between 59 and 63 is our best glide / minimum. Looks like it's going to be good. They need to paint this runway. Those numbers, you can't even see them. A little longer this time. There we go, rolled it on. Held the nose off, flaps down, or I'm sorry, flaps up. This is pretty close to a stop and go. Nose up, there we go. That's how we keep it from doing that wobbling. That's much better. That is a better technique. I'm putting that in my quiver. My quiver of techniques. Well, that wasn't bad at all. Well, I'd say we could head back, really. We don't have the boys today, but
Approach.
I wouldn't mind going home, spending a day at home. Now I've got variable light right on the nose on the winds. Nope, now we got 6. Must be, wind's kind of weird. We got a traffic report, which is me. Alright, well, let's take it home. We get our 3rd landing at Bolton. So, next thing is I'm going to get my friend Scott in here. He's a CFI. He's the guy, he flies this airplane solo now, so he knows the airplane. I'm going to do some night duel. I don't want my first night flight in 20 years to be alone. So I'll bring him along and we'll test these lights in, basically at night. All right, let's get direct 2 back. So I should be just direct 2. I remember how to do some of this stuff. Recent, Tango Zulu, direct 2, bang, bang, there we go. Let's say we want to go now. Do that, sir. And let's take our altitude to, what am I at now? 25, let's take our altitude to 35. So altitude up and autopilot. So following the GPS, did not catch the altitude, did it? Altitude, there we go. I want to go to 3,500, so up, there we go. You gotta tell it everything twice, it seems like. I gotta be very careful that it does what I ask it to do. 128.1 to get back in.
Approaching altitude.
And 121.8 to get back to the hangar. There we go. All right, it's going to be about 10 minutes of droning along. Well, actually, you've listened to 20 minutes of me droning along, but this would be even more boring. Well, I just should mention the crosswind is now 24 knots, so quite a bit of crabbing going on. You can see the difference. That's my ground track. That's my heading. So there's about this much correction going on. So now it's up to 25. It's amazingly calm on the ground, though. That's really something. That's quite a differential. So that's interesting to me, anyway. How long we got to go? We got another 8 minutes to go. That's 8 minutes of drudgery. So I'll turn this off. Well, this is a problem. Just blew a fuse on the nav strobe lights. So landing light, I can kind of see if it's still working or not, but I no longer have nav strobes. Blew a fuse. And it actually took a while to do that. We've been flying for a while. I can't tell if the landing light's still working. I'll look at it on the ground. So I would have thought if it was going to blow a fuse, it would blow it right away. You know, I mean, what has changed? They didn't get any brighter on the way back. So that's something to look at. I still have not quite reached the peak of Everest. I'll confirm that those are supposed to be 5 amp. I could do that right now, but I don't want to mess around with it. I have the little power chart in there. They would, if they're not 5 amp, I mean everything is 5 or below, so that would be kind of surprising. So, well then, let's turn it off anyway. Yeah, turn those off. Damn it. Alright, we're cleared to enter right downwind for runway 22, report midfield. And we still got 2.5 minutes to go. The runway's right there. I'm on a gradual descent, which needs to actually steepen up quite a bit. We're getting kind of close. And our pound altitude, 1800 here. 1704, but we just rounded up to 18. 1,000 to lose. Got a 28 knot crosswind at the moment. See how quickly that tapers off as we get down a little lower. Giving the autopilot another 1,400 foot per minute test. Hand on stick just in case.
Approaching altitude.
All right, we don't need that much anymore. Close enough. That'll level us off. Yep, it's going to level us out, so get the throttle back in, get some of that rudder off of there. And we're down to 25 knot crosswind. That's like 4 or 5 on the ground. Okay. Good thing we're down to 1770. We could go down to 1704. It's dragging us back up to 1800 because that's what I asked for. And we're down to 24, 23 on the crosswind. There's a good speed. Don't want to go any slower than that. That's flap extension speed. And you definitely see us creeping across here at 21 knots. Well, being blown 21 knots. And that should do it for the autopilot.
Connect.
And let's see, what did I say? Midfield right now in 22, yep. And there's a little chop. We're down to 21 knots on the crosswind. I do have my pulse light on. You should be able to see me now. 20 knots.
Ball Tower 4, Delta Golf is midfield right downwind 22.
For 4 Delta Golf for runway 22, clear to land.
Clear to land runway 22, 4 Delta Golf.
And we're, okay, the crosswind, we're still 20 knots, but we're only seeing 16 of it, and we're 1,000 feet above the ground, so it's going to drop off pretty quickly, I guess, as we get down towards the runway, one would hope. Well, everything's great except for blowing a fuse. There's nothing in the instructions about that, so I'm going to figure that out on my own. Yay.
Leaving altitude.
I wonder why Skyview lady got so quiet. I call her Skyview lady. Her real name is Nagy. All right. Oh, what a pretty picture that is. Lovely. That trench right along the side of the taxiway, that drains right through the middle of my neighborhood. We're in a drainage easement for the airport. So we got a little creek. It's in a common area. It runs right through the neighborhood. Well, that's where it all comes from. All of that water goes down through our neighborhood. I saw a hot air balloon land in that trench once. He was aiming for the runway, of course, landed just shy and got caught in that trench. Bad luck that. So it's down to 6 now, so no wind at all now. So wow, what a shear, huh? All right, no, let's get into it though. We gotta pay attention to it, even at 6. Roll one on. Let's roll it on. Roll it on. Roll it on. Come on. Ah, that was not rolling it on. Ooh, skid mark. Look at that. All right, right Alpha 3, monitor ground pointed at Alpha to Charlie, blah, blah, blah.
4 Delta Golf, exit Alpha 3, taxi parking Alpha and Charlie, monitor ground point 8 on the way in.
Right Alpha 3, Alpha to Charlie, monitor ground point 8, 4 Delta Golf.
Well, it had a good flare, I just didn't have a good touchdown. Damn, that's irritating. It's not going to fix itself. Just if I keep pushing that button, maybe it'll weld itself back together. All right, well, that's the post-functional check flight. Went well enough except for that. I'm glad I tested that before I tried to fly it at night. That's going to take a lot of troubleshooting since it had been on 15-20 minutes before it blew, or at least until I noticed it. I maybe can review the video. But thanks for riding along. I'll try not to make it another 6 months or whatever it was between videos. Talk to you later.